Hello folks, I'm Meteor Sith Posts, and today I want to share my thoughts on Star Wars, family, and what I believe to be the sequel trilogy's greatest flaw. Star Wars has always been about family, be it direct family ties between Luke, Vader, Leia, etc., or even surrogate familial bonds between Anakin and Obi-Wan. The theme of family has always been at its core. Even the prequels, flawed as they may be, carried this theme throughout them. Jedi Masters are like parental figures to their Padawans, and Anakin's loss of his mother is the driving force for his desperation to save his wife, and ultimately what leads to his downfall. Even the relationship between him and Obi-Wan felt familial. They weren't blood-related, but they had become like brothers, as stated by Obi-Wan in his anguish at having to cut down Anakin. Furthermore, the old expanded universe carried this theme through and through. Han and Leia marry and have children, and we experience their trials and tribulations through decades of their lives in countless stories. And even Luke and Mara Jade would go on to become a fan-favorite relationship. Many of the games also carried this theme through them. From Knights of the Old Republic, where you travel the galaxy with your crew, building up bonds, and your interactions with them directly affecting the story, to The Force Unleashed, with Vader murdering Galen Merrick's father and raising him as an apprentice. And should you choose the good and canonically true ending, Galen is redeemed through his compassion and love for others. From his new mentor, Jedi Knight Rom Koda, and more importantly, his romantic interest, Juno Eclipse, he finds peace and ultimately saves the rebellion. Family is in the very DNA of Star Wars, and it's why the new films feel so hollow, so flimsy. They're lacking that key foundation, and the sad thing is that they could have done better. They had all the building blocks, but it's all either wasted or tossed out for a subversion. Rey's only real turmoil is her need to find her parents, but even that ends up wasted, as we're told they're nobodies who abandoned her. She could have formed a bond with Han, who could have been a mentor, but so soon after meeting him, she's kidnapped by Kylo, and before they can even reunite, she watches as he's murdered by his own son. Then there's Finn, and I feel so bad for Boyega, because I feel that Finn has the most wasted potential. He's the only character who isn't a frame-for-frame copy of an archetype from the original trilogy. It made his initial premise really intriguing. A defecting stormtrooper so traumatized by the death of one of his stormtrooper brothers that he has a breakdown. And it starts strong. When he rescues Poe, the two of them had a great dynamic. A really good back and forth. Poe even gives him the name Finn. But as soon as they crash on Jakku, it goes downhill, as Poe just, disappears out of the film to make way for Rey, and Finn's story comes to a screeching halt. No longer is he a traumatized man trying to escape the First Order. Now he's just getting dragged along by Rey because her story is the main story. And by the time we reach Maz's Cantina, the writers have completely forgotten Finn's trauma, to the point where he wields a lightsaber and cuts down his former stormtrooper friends without any real emotional turmoil. He got over that breakdown pretty damn fast. Whereas the OT3 all felt equal, it feels like Rey is the main character of the sequels, and everyone else is supporting cast. Her story takes precedence over the rest, so naturally all the heroes must rush to where she is because that's where the plot is. Finn and Poe even reunite for all but 5 seconds before separating again. Let's contrast that with The Empire Strikes Back, in which, after Hoth, the plot diverges somewhat, as Leia and Han go separate ways to Luke. But let me ask you, which of these diverging plot points is the main one? Trick question. Neither and both. There is no A and B plot in The Empire Strikes Back, no main and side plot. they're both the main plot, and they're both intimately connected together. All three of the main characters' drama is given equal time, and during the third act they all converge together again. None of the OT3 feels like they're just being dragged along for the ride. Anyway, segue aside, now we get to Kylo, probably one of my biggest points of contention with the new movies, as not only does he run counter to the narrative theme of family, but he also demonstrates the writer's fundamental misunderstanding of what it means to be a Jedi and what it means to be a Sith. Kylo is, spoilers, the son of Han and Leia, and his fall to the dark side is the catalyst for what shatters the OT family. We'll get to that a bit later. For now, though, I want to take a minute or two to delve into the writer's fundamental misunderstanding of another core theme, the Jedi and the Sith, and how they get everything backwards. The Sith are those who've given in to temptation. Yet in his desperation for power, Kylo struggles to reject temptation. This is a Jedi trait, though. Power is the temptation, and passion, emotions, attachment, and impatience are the bait. They're what leads so many astray. It's pursuit of these that makes a Sith. But Kylo tries desperately to reject them, to forcibly remove them. Let the past die, kill it if you have to. He tries desperately to repress his feelings and isolate himself from the world. He trains for years to get stronger, more disciplined, whereas Rey, on the other hand, gets all her powers quick and easy, traditionally the path to the dark side. And most importantly, Kylo vehemently rejects attachments, rejecting family and love to the point where he murders his own father. He sees his attachment to Han as a temptation of the light, a weakness, that purging himself of attachments will lead to more power through the dark side. But the dark side creed teaches that these emotions, these feelings of love, passion, of anger and sorrow and fear, these lead to power. The only real attachment Kylo has is a bizarre fascination with Vader, which is explored so little that I'm honestly baffled as to why he has it. Outside of the writers having Vader's mangled mask still around for cheap fan service. But if he was trained under Luke, he must have known the story of Anakin's redemption. On the other hand, you have Rey, who, just a day after learning she is Force-sensitive, can perform Jedi mind tricks and use the Force to grab Anakin's lightsaber out of the air and defeat Kylo. Contrast that to Luke, who found out about the Force in A New Hope, and even 3 years later on Hoth can barely pull his lightsaber out of the snow in time to save himself from the Wampa. Furthermore, Rey is motivated entirely by attachments. Her need for her parents, for a father or mentor figure in Han or Luke, and her emotions are a driving force for all her actions. Her grief and fury at Han's death and Finn's wounds allow her to overpower Kylo on Starkiller Base. She demonstrates impatience at Luke's refusal to train her and help the Resistance, which, while justified, is not a trait of the Jedi. Similarly is the bizarre codependence she develops for Kylo during The Last Jedi. Her need to find redemption in him just comes off as bizarre and contrived considering she watched him murder his old man days prior. Maybe weeks if we're being really generous and assume the journey to Ahch-To took a while. Anyway, that was a little tangent, but it just frustrates me. I love this universe. Watching Star Wars on VHS is my earliest memory, and throughout all these stories, ever since The Empire Strikes Back, these rules have been a constant. But a fundamental misunderstanding of the Jedi and Sith is one thing. a fundamental misunderstanding of Luke Skywalker is beyond me. You have a man whose main characteristic is his altruism towards others, who wanted to save the princess not out of some motivation for a reward, like Han initially, but rather because it was the right thing to do. You have a man that risked his life time and time again for the rebellion because he wanted to defeat the evil of the Empire. A man that, while faltering in his training on Dagobah, tries his best because his friends are counting on him, and upon learning that they're suffering in Cloud City, abandons his training, knowing he's unprepared, but faces down Vader anyway, risking death to save his friends. And most of all, he is the man who saw the good in Vader, one of the most evil monsters in the history of the galaxy, and he saw a chance for redemption. Not only did he try to save him, he went on a suicide mission to do so. He knew that not only would he be alone in the Death Star against Vader and the Emperor both, but that the rebellion was planning to destroy it. He even stated this to the Emperor himself. "Soon I'll be dead, and you along with me." But he went anyway, because that's Luke. His family and friends are the most important thing in the universe to him. And that light was enough to pierce through Vader's armor and touch Anakin Skywalker. And seeing his son endure agony at the hands of the Emperor in order to save him, Anakin redeemed himself to save the family he thought he'd lost. So with that said, are we seriously meant to believe that that same man who redeemed Vader would ever even consider murdering his nephew in his sleep? Like, I've heard people say it was just a moment of weakness, but I have to call bull. Standing over him, reading his mind, contemplating with saber in hand, is not a moment of weakness. Regardless of how horrified he was with his own actions after the fact, this isn't Luke Skywalker. And not only that, after the damage is done and his family is torn apart, does he try to fix it? Nope. He runs off to an island and hides away for years, just waiting to die. His return is even further insult to injury, as instead of trying to reach out to Kylo, he just taunts him. Both he and Leia call the boy a lost cause. It hurt to see these characters say that so quickly and so dismissively. Regardless of my own feelings towards Kylo and his actions, he was a young and vulnerable boy. His family failed him, and now they won't even try to save him. And look, all this is not to say that the old expanded universe is beyond reproach in this respect. Many fans took issue with certain aspects of the fall of Jason Solo, myself included. But even his fall to the dark side was handled far better than Kylo in The Last Jedi. It wasn't Luke betraying his core values that led to Jason's fall, and as bitter as that story was, the legacy characters still retained their values. The Skywalkers and Solos didn't run away or abandon each other and let the galaxy fall to ruin around them. They united and fought together as a family. The complete rejection or misunderstanding of these core themes of family and bonds isn't the only reason why the new movies feel so shallow and so empty, but in my eyes at least, I believe it's the biggest factor. And it's why I don't believe The Rise of Skywalker will be enough to save the trilogy. Too much damage has already been done. Characters and even actors are sadly no longer with us. We never once saw the original trio all together again, and now we never will. Hell, I don't even think we saw the new trio all together until the very end of The Last Jedi. If you reject the core principles that make Star Wars what it is, can you really call it Star Wars anymore? Sure, the new films have the bells and the whistles, TIE fighters, X-Wings, lightsabers, direct analogues of the Rebellion and Empire, but it's all just surface level. The Force Awakens is almost beat for beat a remake of A New Hope. Almost. Ironically, for a beat for beat remake, the only thing it's missing is its heart. If you've made it to the end of this video, thank you for listening. I'd also like to thank my good friend and partner in crime, Slade, for helping me proofread this script. If you like Star Wars lore content, you should subscribe to his channel. I'll add a link in the description. For now though, I'm signing off. Again, thank you for listening, and may the Force be with you.